Chapter 15. Credo, page 41. I hope I have succeeded in showing that my own life experiences have reflected what I've written about the application of psychological theories. From that point of view, I seem to have written a series of self-portraits. There is the portrait of my dark side, which I had to confront after Honor's death, and the new portrait that emerged from that critical process. There followed the portrait of Dorothy's husband, experiencing being loved for the first time and learning to be a loving man. I began to consider the value of a belief system, and when Dorothy and I ran a cancer support group, it seemed to us that confronting the imminence of death, some clarity of thought about belief systems was important. As you would expect, there was always a range of beliefs about what happened after death, ranging from a complete absence of anything to the classical Christian belief of life after death. However, when I ask myself about my belief system, I'm at a loss simply because I don't really know how to put it into words. I do know that I have great respect for and thoroughly enjoy Anglican High Church ritual. I think because ritual contains some symbolic truth. It means something to me, but I don't know what, and in any case believing in something which has no objective foundation is something I cannot do nor ever felt the need to do. I just remain open to whatever is waiting for me after death. I found, and I'm sure it was Dorothy's influence, that I began to experience what I came to understand was a function of my right brain, namely empathy, a greater ability to understand someone else's predicament. I think that before I met her, my right brain was asleep. She believed in angels and knew that she had her own guardian who appeared to her from time to time, especially when she was troubled. She was a very practical person, not given to hallucinations, and I accepted what she said, and since then have had great respect for the angels and ministers of grace who overlook our destiny. I was quite unable to discount Dorothy's visionary convictions. My whole concentration has been on making the most of the now and doing my best to see that all my senses are alert in the spirit of the Buddhist idea of mindfulness. I found Zen Buddhist teachings very helpful. One's now is often diluted, perhaps even contaminated by one's past and one's future. Such contamination has neatly been called the problems of afterburn, past events and their emotional repercussions, and feedback, anxieties about what might happen in the future. It follows that to wholly in the present, I found I had to make quite sure there was no unfinished business in my past, and I must face the future without anxiety. A good spring clean was necessary. My position at the moment is that I can forget about the God word and concentrate on the quality of my relationships. I am not a praying person, but my work and experience has led me to think that praying for someone else's welfare might actually do them good, and that the Christian belief in the efficacy of prayer might be well founded. I am not a relativist. I believe in right and wrong, good and evil, and in an absolute truth, and I believe in the powers of darkness and the powers of light. I have no proper understanding of the meaning of the phrase postmodernism, but I have a feeling that what I have written allows me safely to claim that I am not a postmodernist. I cannot avoid thinking about the accounts of other journeys that people have made after they have seen themselves as they really are. One such is Pilgrim's Progress. Another is the story of Paul on the road to Damascus. I can't help feeling that what happened to me, as with Paul, was that the scales fell from my eyes, and no longer whitewashing the behaviours of the Mr. Hyde within, or what Jung has called the shadow. He reminded Use that the only person without a shadow was the devil. Once the scales have fallen, there is a temptation to wallow in a morass of guilt. I seem to have been able to avoid this by having an understanding that I was not to blame for the circumstances of my early life, which moulded my character. The question of happiness is interesting, especially to a depressive like me. I do not regard happiness as an emotion, but rather the state of mind when inner conflicts are resolved, and one feels that all is right with the world, and the problems of sexuality, jealousy, hatred, anger, guilt, misery and despair are dealt with. Resolving these inner conflicts can be arduous work. Some never attempt this properly because the idea of such work is foreign to a hedonistic society more interested in the satiation of desire than in the pursuit of wholeness, and which no longer accepts or understands the prime importance of friendliness. I have spoken of my preference for this idea over the Christian injunction to love. It seems to include ideas of understanding, tolerance and respect. And I feel that if Homo sapiens is going to survive, he needs to implement these characteristics without too much delay, and the older I get, the more convinced of the truth of this I become.